Today we're stepping into the world of rugby and talking about one Fijian rugby player in particular, Vuate Karawalevu. Now, he debuted with the Sydney Bears first, and most recently, the reason why we're talking about him is that he signed a contract with the New South Wales Waratahs, the boys in blue. Now, one of my second favorite teams when it comes to Super Rugby. I don't know if he's playing alongside some of the Waratahs' iconic players, Hooper, Beale. Since Eddie Jones came in the mix with the Australian rugby and he turned everything upside down, right now I have no idea the lineup for some of the most exciting players we used to watch. It's all made upside down, and a lot of Australian rugby players have been drafted into the Rugby League, and that was one of the biggest reasons why Australia got kicked out of the pool games in the Rugby World Cup. According to Jones, they were all being absorbed by the Rugby League division. Sorry about that. We're not here to talk about Australian rugby. We're here to talk about Vuate Karawalevu. So, this guy is a Gen Z. That's right, born in 2001. He's 22 years old, and he was playing in some clubs in Australia. But of course, when you're doing damage on the rugby field, there are a lot of eyeballs looking your way, especially when you're playing overseas. And him being taken into the Waratahs, this is an amazing opportunity for Mr. Karawalevu. And I hope a lot of other Fijian rugby players, they can look in the direction that he's going and they can follow suit. And that actually is a beautiful segue to what we need to talk about next. How many rugby players are there in Fiji? According to the Fiji Rugby website, there are around 80,000 rugby players. 60,000 senior players, 20,000 under 21. Now let's try and put this into context. Are we sending enough players overseas? I know there's a lot of Fijian rugby players overseas, and when anyone hears about Fiji, they just think of rugby. Someone thinks of Fiji, they think of rugby. What comes next is tourism, beautiful beaches, and some of the most dangerous and funniest people on this side of heaven. But how many players are we actually sending overseas? Are we sending a healthy proportion of players overseas according to our population? Let's discuss it. Fiji is a country dominated by rugby, so much so that a good, healthy proportion of players are drafted overseas or are currently in overseas clubs and making a killing and supporting their family. So, is this a statement that we can make? I'm not too sure about that. Let's look at the numbers. Fiji's population 2023 census records it at 947,760. The Itauke population from that figure is 538,327. Now, from that 538,000, according to the Fiji Rugby website, 80,000 active rugby players are currently in Fiji. 80,000, 60,000 seniors, 20,000 below the age of 21. From that 80,000, to put that into percentage, that's around 14% of rugby players that we have currently in Fiji. So the whole of Fiji, the Fiji that is currently engulfed, that is enamored in rugby, it's 14%. The rest are just enthusiasts. They don't play rugby. They support their mega fans, and that's okay. So, according to the entire population of Fiji, we can say that the Itauke is 14%. But if we had to look at everyone in Fiji, including the Indo-Fijians and Rotumans, that would be around 8 to 9%. From that figure, how many players are we sending overseas who currently have international contracts? Now, according to Rugby Explorer, CEO of Fijian drawer Mark Evans, he did mention that there are around 200 active rugby players overseas from 16 to 19 years old. Let's just add another 100 to that to account for the senior players and say 300. 300 rugby players overseas with international contracts. To put a percentage to that, without 80,000 rugby players in Fiji, that's 0.3%. Now, I still think 300 is quite small. Let's bump that up to 1,000. And this is being very generous. to assume that there are 1,000 active Fijian rugby players overseas. I don't have the figures with me. I tried to find it, but I couldn't. So working under the assumption that there are 1,000 Fijian rugby players overseas, that's around 1.2% of the current rugby population in Fiji. So to add it all up, it's actually quite small. It's a small percentage of the amount of players that are in the country. It's a small percentage of the amount of Fijian rugby players overseas. Now there are few who make their way all the way to the top, like our brother right here, Voate Karawalevu, 22 years old, Gen Z, he was born in 2001. Is there hope for millennials to actually find a rugby club overseas and get a rugby contract? I would say yes. Millennials currently now, they would be in the age of 27 to 42 years old, born in 1981 to 1996. There is a chance for you guys to actually be drafted to an international club overseas if you're currently playing rugby and you have what it takes, you have the time, you have the commitment, and the family doesn't mind. I think there is a big chance for millennials and also more Gen Z to find international rugby clubs overseas. But what's stopping us from doing that? Now, these guys who actually make it all the way up into international clubs in New Zealand, Australia, some of the French clubs, and also across Europe, these guys are the cream of the crop, and these names are the names that's been echoed either on radio, on television. But what about the names that actually don't make it into the papers? What about the people who play in the clubs in Naitasiri, Nandronga? What about all these awesome, amazing talents that are currently undiscovered? What about these guys? The answer is you'll have to do it yourself. You don't have the media support. You don't have the marketing team of Fiji Rugby. You don't have the big names who are propping your name up onto the international stage. You would really have to do it yourself. And there is one way that you can do it, and that's through social media. Instead of watching funny videos on social media or commenting on silly stuff, what you need to do is take advantage of your phone and start using your data for the right reasons. Now, get your phone and start making some highlight reels. Get some good shots of yourself, either running past the camera, making a try, that would be better. Basically making your own highlight reel, compiling everything together, and then using that as a package to pitch yourself to potential clubs overseas. Now, you don't have the support of Fiji Rugby, you don't have the support or the benefit of the media shining a light on you and making yourself known to others overseas, because, you know, only the big names would have that. For us little people, what we can do is do it ourselves. So basically everything I'm telling you now are things that you already know, skills and tools that you already have. Everyone has a phone, everyone knows how to make a video, take photos, everyone knows a thing or two about the rules of third, everyone knows a little about a lot of things. So put all of that together, get a friend of yours to make a video of yourself and make it happen on your own. Because the amount of people overseas representing Fiji is very small. There are big names, but those names are pretty isolated. We need overseas clubs to be filled with Fiji. Like how Fiji is filled with Indians, we basically need overseas clubs to be filled with Fijians. So try and promote this, push it, promote yourself. Think of it as your resume. Make a video of yourself and start pushing it. We need to increase the percentage of the rugby players in Fiji. And what would increase that is if the Indo-Fijian population could actually step into the rugby field. That would be great. Out of the over 900,000 in population, the Indo-Fijians make up close to 40%. That's a huge, huge, huge percentage. Close to 40%. Well, 38%. That's 38%. So if the Indo-Fijian would actually start playing rugby, a lot more of them, we could actually increase Fiji as a rugby nation to around 20%. That is a good, healthy, round figure. But like what Drake said, we got to start from the bottom and then work our way to the top. Right now we're here, but we're here in a very small figure. We need to actually break through the roof and reach the skies. All right, let's do it.